Hi, my name is Taylor Dominique, and this is my presentation on the lynching of Italians in New Orleans. It is a story about a police chief who was murdered, and that murder led to the lynching and killing of numerous Italian Americans. The story also sheds light onto how Italian immigrants were treated during the late 1800s. In the late 1800s, there was an increase in Italian immigration to the United States, specifically to New Orleans. Following the Civil War, there was an increased need for workers to work in the fields in Louisiana. The Italians who immigrated to New Orleans had some things in common with the native population there, such as commonly living with extended families, their shared Catholic faith, and even the climate. Despite this, the Italians faced discrimination upon their arrival. Italians in America during the Gilded Age faced numerous negative stereotypes. They were seen as more prone to violence and were often suspected of being involved with the Mafia. The Italians that immigrated during this time also had little concept of race relations of the Deep South. Italians often opened shops in African American communities, which led to distrust between the Italians and the native-born whites. They were given derogatory names that were used for many decades. Many people distrusted them because they were known for coming to America only to send all of the money they made back home to Italy. David Hennessy always knew he wanted to be in law enforcement. He was a detective by the age of 22, which was impressive for the time. Early on in his career, he was known for going after Italian-American criminals. He thought his career was over when he was accused and subsequently acquitted of committing murder. He ended up joining a private police force agency to get back into the business. Private police agencies were popular during this time because of a distrust of the police and worries that they were corrupt. In 1888, the mayor of New Orleans asked Hennessy to become the chief of police. In New Orleans during this time, there were two prominent Italian families that are relevant to this story. The Provenzano family had contracts to unload fruit that was being shipped into New Orleans. The Matranga family was considered more powerful, but relied on the Provenzanos for protection. They allegedly had ties to the Mafia, and it was said that the police chief was investigating their family. When this happened, the Matranga family decided to take over the fruit loading contracts from the Provenzanos, which ended up leading to a few deaths. There were rumors that Hennessy had received evidence from Sicily that would incriminate the Matrangas, which he was going to present in court. Just 2 days before that court date, on October 17th, the police chief was walking home at night with one of his friends. After his friend left him, as Hennessy was approaching his front porch, he was shot numerous times. It was said that he tried to return fire, but was unsuccessful. All had fled the scene. His friend had heard the shots and ran to his side. There were reports that he told his friend at the time that it was the Italians who had killed him, but this was never confirmed. He was rushed to the hospital, where he died the next morning. There were immediately rumors everywhere about the murder. Within hours, over 5 dozen Italians had been arrested. Most of them were only guilty of carrying a firearm, which was common at this time and was in no way evidence that they were involved in Hennessy's killing. Eventually, 19 men were arrested in connection with the murder. The mayor of New Orleans appointed a group called the Committee of 50 to preside over the handling of the situation. The group was made up of wealthy, upper-class white men, many of whom had reported ties to white supremacy groups. There were rumors flying that Hennessy had been killed by the Mafia, which sent panic not only throughout New Orleans, but the whole country. It is quite possible that the police ignored information early on that the murder was committed by non-Italians because of their bias at the time. The amount of rumors surrounding this case were unlimited. One of those rumors was that Italians across the country were contributing large sums of money to fund attorneys for the Italians in custody. There was another that the murder was part of a larger plot to kill prominent officials, like the one you see on the screen about the mayor being next. There were even claims that one of the men confessed, but it was just more likely that he had gone insane while in jail. It was already obvious that there was a lot of misinformation surrounding this murder, and this was before the trial had even begun. Before the trial started, there were allegations that the Mafia had infiltrated it. The defense pulled dozens of witnesses to provide alibis for all of those accused on the night of Hennessy's murder. But no matter the lack of evidence, the public had already decided that all were guilty. As the trial came to a close, there were more rumors about the jury being compromised by Italians in the Mafia. All of those who were tried were found not guilty or had their case declared a mistrial. I'm sure you can imagine how that went over with the public, who already had so many preconceptions about this case. There was immediate rage at the outcome of the trial. The next day, there were calls in the newspapers for an uprising. It was signed by the Committee of 50 I talked about earlier. On March 14th, a mob of reportedly over 15,000 people joined together. It was led by prominent lawyers, politicians, and there were even rumors that the jury was there too. They marched down to the prison, and when they were denied entry, they went around to the back door and broke it down. Immediately, they began killing those inside, while others were dragged out into the public square and lynched. The police force at the time was too small to do anything, and the governor didn't hear about the mob until it was too late. This was one of the largest mass lynchings in American history. The story gained international news attention. Those who were part of the mob believed that they were getting their own justice for Hennessy. They believed the Italians were criminals and therefore guilty. The newspapers across the country had varying response. Some supported the mob going out and murdering those who were believed to be guilty of murder. Others were not. Anti-Italian sentiment rose significantly as a result of this event. There were new restrictions on immigration put into place, and U.S. relations with Italy were damaged. The Italian government went so far as to close its embassy temporarily. The president ordered that the Attorney General investigate the lynchings, but not much came of it. There were rumors that there would be more killings that would pop up across the country, which they never did. There ended up being an informal settlement between the Italian government on behalf of the families of those murdered, which helped to repair the relations between the two countries. The lasting impact of this event is that it drastically increased anti-Italian sentiments across the country. It elevated Police Chief Hennessy to a level in public memory that he didn't necessarily deserve. It shows that racism at this time in American history reached beyond the African American community, but onto any of those who were considered different, like the Italian Americans. That's the end of my presentation, and I look forward to any questions. Thank you.